welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you guys how you can take the hamster Crittertrail cage and convert it into a safe hamster travel cage that you can use with your hamster instead of throwing away your Crittertrail cage because it's not suitable as a cage for your hamster. So without further ado, make sure you hit that subscribe button and let's get into today's video. So first off, I want to say ignore the shirt hanging over there. It's for tomorrow. I lay out my outfits before school the night before, so that's just that. But here is my Crittertrail that I have for my very first hamster. I got this cage and connected it to like a 20-gallon. I used that for my first hamster when I was like 9 years old, but I only used it that one time, and after that I upgraded my hamster's cages steadily and improved my care throughout the years, as do a lot of hamster owners if you started a while ago. But with that being stated, I haven't used this actually for a travel cage or for anything for a while, but a while back before I got my current hamster, his name is Moose. He's a Syrian hamster. You can go watch my other videos on this channel if you're new with him in it because he's really cute. But I haven't used this with him either, but it is a backup travel cage because it's pretty big and it would be good for like a very short period of time as a travel cage, as I mentioned before. And so I'm going to show you guys how I did that and explain a little bit more why shoebox-sized enclosures such as this cage are not suitable for any small animal, but especially not hamsters. To start off, the measurements of this cage are about this. I'll put it on the screen because I'm not going to do it right now, but the bare minimum in the US currently for hamsters, which was decided on a hamster club or forum, is currently like 650 square inches or something around that. It used to be 450 and then before that 360, but currently it's in the 600s, 700s, which is where it should have always been because hamsters move a lot in their cage. They are originally these species of animal that would travel tons of miles per day and have a lot of territory, which is why they need a big cage, because even the biggest of cages still does not technically replicate their original home, and they have only been domesticated for around 100 years, which compared to dogs and cats, which are commonly domesticated pets, as you probably know, those guys have been domesticated way longer, which is why they can survive in very different conditions than their ancestors. But hamsters have only been domesticated for so long, and it's actually really cool that they are so good with humans for only having been domesticated for that long. But with that being said, some hamsters also don't like humans still because they have that right to have their own personality, just like dogs and cats and other animals. But yeah, that's why they need a big cage, and I'll show you guys more why this isn't a suitable cage now. So if we take a look at it closer, you can see that it is metal bars and cheap plastic that they can produce very quickly and make lots of money off of. These cages are pretty expensive for the size, like most too small of cages on the market at pet stores, like the Tiny Tail brand and other small cages that are way too small for any species of hamster, including dwarf hamsters. Even though they're smaller, they just have higher energy to match Syrian hamsters, which are larger than dwarf hamsters. But as you can see, they produce these really quickly because it makes them a lot of money, and it's really easy to break this plastic, and it's very hard to put together these cages. So they say you can collect and connect them, but really it's really expensive to buy a bunch of these, and then it's really painful to connect them all and keep them all clean, and it's still divided floor space, so it doesn't even count as a bigger cage. It's just a bunch of little cages put together with height and things and extremities like that that do not benefit hamsters, that need horizontal space, not vertical space, because they're poor climbers and can get injured from falls from anything that's high. So tall critter trails and tall tiny tail cages are really harmful and detrimental to hamsters' well-being as well. Not to mention that most small animal cages that are this small and not suitable for small animals such as hamsters have very shallow bases that even if you fill it all the way to the top, it's only like 3 inches, and if you fill it any more, it's going to spill out of the bars, which is really annoying, but you actually would need to fill it really high up, and it's a really tiny cage overall, so it's just not suitable. Please do not buy these cages. Along with all this stuff, they also have very unsuitable tubing for these cages that are way too small for Syrian hamsters, and yet Syrian hamsters are one of the most popularly owned hamsters in the US because they're the big, cute, fluffy hamster, but they're sometimes the hardest to care for because they need all big items. Otherwise they can get stuck in the tubing and die because they're trying to turn around, and then they get suffocated in a tiny claustrophobic tube. So don't do that to your hamster. This is very claustrophobic as it is, but the tubes are even smaller. As you can see, I removed the tubes, and I'll explain more in a second. So basically this video is for anyone who owns a Crittertrail or a Tiny Tail cage that's similar setup to this cage, but doesn't want to just get rid of it because of how expensive they are. As long as it's not broken or damaged in any of the extreme parts of the cage, you should be able to keep it and transform it into a safe backup travel cage or your main travel cage, or even a little holding center for your hamster while you clean their cage, as long as it's not one of the tall, tiny tail like rocket ships or any of those cages where even if you put your hamster in it for just like 10 minutes to clean something, they could get injured in it. I only mean like the very minimal ones, like my pink one, that's pretty low. But I even still don't use it with my hamster unless I really had to, like a backup thing of his other travel cage, which is the Living World large small animal travel cage, which is what I use for my hamster. If that broke, then I have this, but I also have another travel cage as well. So I just like to have backups in case of emergency. But this is an option for anyone who doesn't want to add to landfills, because since these plastics break so easily because they make them out of cheap material because it costs them less and then they're making more profit off of these cages, that just means that a lot of people are throwing away these cages all the time, which adds to plastic and like metal and things that are really hard and don't break down or on our earth, which is really hard on our environment, which is why I recommend to try and at least keep it for a backup cage, and also do not try to donate it to any donation centers or anything like that, because you just know that someone's going to get that and think that that's all they need for a hamster or any other small animal, and then that small animal is going to live in a neglectful situation. So try to keep people from taking not proper pet care things from you, and just keep it for educational purposes like I have and backup purposes. Also, this is what a proper hamster cage looks like. This isn't even the biggest hamster cage out there. If you're new to like proper hamster care, hamsters need a lot of space because they have a high energy system and they have a high rate of getting stress related illnesses in small enclosures. So as you can see, this is my Crittertrail. It's not my favorite ever travel cage because it's just loud and it clangs around, but it is nice because you can attach a water bottle to it, and that way if you're going for a long period of time traveling, then you could give your hamster water in an actual bottle. But usually I just use my smaller travel cage with a piece of cucumber for water, which is just as safe, and if anything it's a little bit more safe because water bottles tend to leak into bedding when you're jostling the travel cage around a little bit in a car or anything like that. Also, don't mind Bruno the dino. He's just right there. He's so cute though. It used to have a tube that connected this upper chamber to the like first level to give them like that. But this is a tiny, tiny, tiny little chamber, and a lot of Styrian hamsters have been shown to actually pop open the lid and get out because they're so big compared to the container. They take up a ton of space up here and it's just so cramped up here. So what I did, because you can't remove this, otherwise you'll have a hole on the top of your lid, and I don't want to have to DIY more than necessary. So what I did was I just blocked off the tunnel and removed the tunnel. So for the top tunnel tube opening, I used an extra tube closer that I had, or whatever you call this. And then for the bottom one, I actually DIY'd it, which you might have to do. So I took the mesh that I use for my bin cages usually, and for Moose's current bin cage, which is basically just this mesh that you can get at Home Depot. And I hot glued it only on the outside so he can't chew on it. Anyways, I used a little bit of cardboard on the inside from a toilet paper roll that I also glued on just to keep him from chewing on the wire mesh or the hot glue gun, but I will, if I ever use this with him, monitor him. I unfortunately did pop out this on this side, so I put another one of those tube ends to this, and I actually hot glued it on the outside so it would stay in there really good. And then lastly, I did the same thing I did on the other one for both of these openings, so it's really strong and on there. I did this a while ago, so it has lasted a while now. And obviously monitor it. You don't ever want to use a cage that has duct tape holding it together, because that's not secure and they can get out. And this is only for like temporary emergencies and stuff, but I made sure that there's no way he's gonna get out of these tubes openings. So other than making sure that they can't get up to this too small of a top where they could pop it open by closing off all of these openings with your either mesh and a little bit of cardboard on the inside, at least on the bottom ones where you could reach it. On the top one up here, I didn't, because you can't reach it. So that they don't have access to here, and they don't have access obviously outside of the cage. That's like all you have to do to moderate this cage into a travel cage. And then I also took an extra plastic water bottle that I had. It's a really cheap one from Walmart, so it kind of leaks, but it's lightweight rather than my favorite, which is glass water bottles. I use a glass water bottle and a glass bowl for my hamster to give him options, and because glass bottles are just easier to clean and they look nicer and they usually don't leak as often as plastic ones because they're made a little bit with better quality and they're about the same price. But I did get this a while ago for some reason and it leaks, so I put it in here because I'm never going to use it with Moose in his cage because I'm not going to deal with that, and I have nicer ones, but also because plastic is what you want to use in travel cages, with even if it's attached to the cage, just because any heavy objects could easily crush your hamster if you stop suddenly in a car or anything like that. You want everything lightweight so it's safe with your hamster in the travel cage, so that's why I use this plastic water bottle. But other than that, you're just going to want to make sure you put lots of bedding in here as well for traveling or anything like that. And that is how you can convert your Crittertrail into a travel cage that you can use with your hamster. Otherwise though, do not use Crittertrails or Tiny Tails or any other small, tiny, shoebox sized enclosures with your hamster because that's just not safe and not ethically correct. And if you're new to the hamster world, again, shoebox enclosures is just a nickname for an enclosure that is so small, all it fits is maybe 1 or 2 shoes, like a shoebox. It'd be like putting a human in a really small, cramped closet with just like food and water and maybe a small toilet, but all next to each other, and being like, yeah, you can survive in that. But will you thrive in that? No, you will not, and you could get an illness and you'll get mental stuff and all that stuff. Same idea for 2 small cages with hamsters, but times 10 worse. So I hope this helped anyone who wanted to reuse their Crittertrail for something other than just putting it up in storage for the rest of its life and maybe get some more use out of it in a safe way. Just make sure you monitor your hamster with it and be very careful that they're not climbing or getting stressed out in it by giving them a lot of bedding and chew toys and having it for just short periods or just emergencies. Please do not use it for an actual cage. I beg of you, take care of your hamster and educate yourself on animal care before you get that animal, because they are living beings that are relying solely on you for proper care to stay healthy. But anyways guys, I hope this video helped. And as always, make sure you hit that like button, comment down below, and I'll see you guys in next week's video. Bye guys.
It's okay if you don't feel the same.